This pitch is the worst thing to happen to this ground since that bloke couldn't say that other bloke's name.
This is the country where your people cheer on some of the world's greatest cricket players, from Sachin Tendulkar to Virat Kohli.
So by now you've probably already seen that I've covered the pitch in another video, so just, I don't know, people on YouTube do this, so I figured I should point down. You should probably go and watch that if you want to hear more about the pitch. But I still want to do a review of the test, but I've kind of left myself a little bit snookered.
This show is called Last Knock. I don't really understand why it is called that.
This is a real Fox Sports headline. It's a bizarre one, but it's also kind of very accurate. This test was all over the place. Let us go back to the first day for a moment, all the way back to, very recently. It was supposed to be about Ishant Sharma and his 100th test, but politics sort of intervened. Sport and politics should never mix, but sport and politics always mix, and sport and politics mixed. It's also worth thinking that with Modi and Trump, this might be the most right-wing ground in the world. And being that we still have Lords, that's quite some effort. Although it was probably a little bit embarrassing to all the people involved when the lights went out not once, but twice on the first day. I mean, they're good-looking lights, don't get me wrong, but they're probably better when they're on. And then on day one, we see Ishant Sharma firing in. He takes that first wicket with seam, and we see one more seam wicket in the match. And that's kind of weird to begin with because day-night tests are usually dominated by the pink ball hopping around like crazy. If you remember, England was so worried just training there under the pink ball that they were like, we're going to take as many seamers as possible. Like if you count Ben Stokes, and I am because it sounds slightly funnier, they had 4 seamers. And remember, not a single ball of seam was bowled in the 3rd or 4th innings of this entire match. I mean, I'm pretty sure we didn't even get Stuart Broad bowling his cutters, which actually now feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. And of the Sharmas, Rohit was much more likely to be bowling at the end of this game than Ishant was. So we didn't get a lot of seam, but we also didn't get a lot of batting and really not that much spinning. This was the fewest balls in a test match since the Second World War. And if you can think all the way back to day 1, I mean, what are we like? Day 3, day 4, day 5 now? It seemed like back then that the England batters were to blame. Essentially, England turned up to Asia to prepare the arse out of playing spin. And that seemed to just get worse and worse and worse as they went on. They beat Sri Lanka because Sri Lanka forgot to choose any batters and because of Jarrod. But if you put carbon-based life forms up against England spinners and Root fails a couple of times, suddenly the whole thing just fell apart. But by day 2, it's not that none of that was true, it's just that none of that mattered anymore. I mean, that same Joe Root took 5 for 8. His bowling average was 47 coming into this test. Yeah, okay, he's good against left-handers. And he held himself beautifully back until there was actually left-handers there. In fact, young captains, if you're out there and you bowl a little bit, but you know you're not that good a bowler, the absolute best thing you can do at any situation is to only bowl yourself when everything is in your favour and you'll take wickets. Because people will think you're a better bowler than you actually are. I'm not saying that's what Joe Root did. But even so, this was the second craziest 5-wicket haul by a part-timer in Asia to lose the test that I can remember in quite some time. I mean, it was crazy. It was weird. It was all those sorts of words. There were actually other things other than batters just not making any runs. Joe Root was unhappy with the 3rd umpiring. He handled it better than Kohli in the previous test, but again we had a lot of going up to the umpire. For a well-umpired series, this has actually had a lot of going up to the umpires annoyed, and it's almost all because of the 3rd umpiring. For long stretches of this series, I'm not being completely convinced that the 3rd umpires understand the full protocols of what they are supposed to be doing. They just seem to be racing towards a decision. It's a bit like when you're driving and you slow down because you see a pedestrian, and then that pedestrian sprints across the road tripping. That's what the 3rd umpires have been doing over and over and over again. Just walk normally. Slow down. All the people watching at home are going to have their own biased opinions anyway. All you can really do is make the best decision you can and not stuff up the protocols. Don't like this camera? Maybe we have another one. Of course, what this series has really shown us is what we need is a specialist 3rd umpire in a bunker somewhere. This is what other sports around the world already do, and they get it. It is a completely different job now to normal umpiring. But at the moment, it seems like the sort of people that we're giving these jobs to also wouldn't know how to access their own Netflix account. You may want to rock and roll this one, ICC. And I know I wasn't going to mention the pitch. but I can mention it a little bit. And I mean kind of the whole wicket, like the footmarks fell apart early on. Perhaps it had something to do with the fact there was no first class cricket had been played here, or that there hadn't been really any cricket for a long time. But the curator got this horribly wrong. What I know is you wouldn't want another pitch like this next week. But that doesn't mean that this wasn't fun. This was massive bags of fun. A part-time bowler taking wickets is always fun. A bloke in his second test looking like he's better than George Lohman, that's also fun. Rohit Sharma going out ribs before wicket, that's fun. Shit pitches create this beautiful madness, and as long as they're not dangerous, other than to batters' egos, a pitch like this every now and again it's kind of wonderful. It's like sprinkling cash into a crowded area. You know you shouldn't do it, and that something could go horribly wrong. But you also know that you're going to want to watch when someone else does it. I fundamentally believe that Test cricket needs as many good pitches as possible. That should be the aim. I think over the last couple of years, while the pitches have been better for bowlers, Test cricket has been so entertaining. And I've really enjoyed it. But sometimes Test cricket should be fun, and mad, and silly, and just a little bit unhinged. Sometimes it should be impossible to score a run, and all batters should look like idiots. They should be in complete fear of losing their off stump no matter kind of where the ball is pitched. They should be standing in their pitch as batters, shitting themselves at what is about to come. And this should happen really quickly, so the batters have no time to change their game, no time to do anything different. They're just there, being embarrassed. Essentially like we've just dumped the entire test into a raging rapids that's about to go over a waterfall. Yes, the curator will be embarrassed by this, and it wasn't a perfect surface, it wasn't even a good surface. Lots of things went wrong with it, most of which was the batsman missing straight balls, but that's in the other video. But Test cricket is silly, it shouldn't exist. It was too long a game to play in the late 1800s. For some reason we've got people wearing whites on green grass. We break for tea. I don't even drink tea. There are silly points actually in the game. You know, this is a ludicrous sport. We play on a living, breathing surface, and it doesn't give a shit about our agendas. And we all take it so seriously. Sometimes it is good to just let your freak flag fly. Tex Perkins once said, sometimes the 5% of up weird shit comes to the top. This test was the 5% of up weird shit. So let's enjoy that and hope that the next one goes at least into the third day.